incredible ripple maker. He certainly is making waves. He's a Christian, he's a husband, he's a dad, and he's a burnout survivor. Give us a hashtag burnout survivor if you are indeed also a burnout survivor. Actually, give us a hashtag burning out now if you feel like actually this is something that's happening for you now, so that we can see, like, where are you in this burnout cycle? Are you totally like, serene, as our lovely Simi Sandhu? She's got a beautiful program, the Serene Creator. And if you're feeling like that burnout is starting to sneak up on you, I've had a few conversations with entrepreneurs over the last couple of days, and they're like, do you know, I need a break. I think it's important that we take them. So we're going to dive in with Phil now. He's the founder of WorkLife180 Coaching Practice, helping people to live a much less stressful life. Following a successful 30-year corporate career, he experienced a life-changing stress-related burnout. This not only left him hospitalised and unable to work, but also feeling desperate to take his own life. After a chance encounter, which took him along a completely different path, he gradually regained his health, his self-esteem, and now his sense of purpose. He now helps others to regain their own. Let's give it up for the amazing Phil Horrod. Phil, come on.
Thank you very much, Sammy. Thank you.
It's so good to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. I've been enjoying some sunshine today, which is always good.
It is always good. It's always good. Now, Phil, where in the world are you? Where are you coming to us live from?
So we're today in sunny Buckinghamshire.
Yay!
About 25 miles northwest of London. Yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, welcome to One Drop. Thank you for dropping in with us today. Now, your title says it all, the Burnout Coach. But what is underneath? Who is Phil? What's underneath the Burnout Coach bonnet? So share with us, who are you? What do you do? And why do you love doing what you do so much?
So as you rightly said earlier, Sammy, I'm a husband. I'm a dad to 2 teenagers. I had a 30-year corporate career, which was in finance. I qualified originally in business studies and then became a chartered management accountant, did various different projects around the world. And I then moved into recruitment. And those of you who know recruitment, I know you were speaking to Dee yesterday about her life in recruitment, and we've had numerous conversations about it, actually, Dee and myself. It's a really, really hectic and full-on industry. You're pretty much working from early in the morning, speaking to clients when they're available. You're working weekends and late nights when you're speaking to candidates. And in between, you're doing all sorts of different things, trying to find candidates for jobs, etc. And I moved into an area of outsourcing. So when an organization was outsourcing their entire HR function or their recruitment function, and I specialized in that for quite a time. I was in the recruitment industry for about 13 years. So I was quite unusual in that industry. I was quite a lot older, originally had my professional qualification, and lots of the people I worked with were new graduates, very hungry, very good salespeople. I'm not a salesperson. So for me, that made it doubly challenging as well. But what I found was that I was spending kind of every hour at work and with having young children, not really any time with the family. Out in the morning at 5:36 and then back in the evening, sometimes not till 10. I think everybody sort of resonates with that to some extent. And I think if we're honest, each and every one of us has probably said that thing, I wish if only I had more hours in the day. And I got to a stage where I was working about 18, 19 hours a day. And my default position has always been, when there's problems, challenges, new things to do, I just put my foot to the metal and go. A lot like a lot of people, particularly entrepreneurs, particularly those people that run their own businesses. And obviously, a lot of people who work in the corporate sector are similar. That's kind of how they've got to where they've got to. And unfortunately, I put my boot to the metal too long and too far. And one day, 6 o'clock, my wife was helping me to iron a shirt to get out to, as normal, catch an early train. And all of a sudden, it felt like my heart was pounding out my chest. It felt like I was not right. And my arms started to feel like lead. And I remember my dad telling me he had a heart attack, telling me about those symptoms. And so I thought I was having a heart attack. My wife's a nurse. She called for the ambulance, and cut the long story short, I ended up in hospital. Thankfully, I hadn't had a heart attack. It was a major panic attack, mainly in response to the ongoing stress I'd put myself through, and other factors had put me through as well for a long period of time. But instead of ending up in a normal hospital for a heart attack, I actually ended up in a mental health day unit, because it just felt like my head had exploded. And in fact, in some respects it had. I ended up being kept in hospital for a while. I was actually going to be sectioned, because all of my experience of that point kind of turned me into somebody that I'm a completely different person. And again, cutting a long story short, it meant that I couldn't go back to work. I was just physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, not just exhausted, but completely burnt out. I think that's where the terminology maybe originally came from. If you're burning a candle at both ends, as they say, guess what? The candle is going to completely burn out. And that's what I did to myself. So I became a stay-at-home dad for about 5 years. In fact, that was my recovery period. That was my period where I was able to spend time with the kids and the family, and sort of recoup some of the time that I'd lost when I was in my corporate career. And at that point, my wife transitioned her career, which was really useful from a family perspective. I wasn't working at that stage. And eventually I got to the stage where I thought I better pay some bills along with my wife, and got to the stage where I decided actually not to go back in the corporate world. Just didn't want to, had enough of that, as a lot of people who work for themselves now have can resonate with. That's why they decide to work for themselves. That's what I did. I retrained as a coach, met some amazing coaches, amazing therapists, amazing people. And originally I was doing business mentoring off the back of my finance career. I was helping a lot of coaches to start their business and to scale, but I felt there was something missing. And I kept asking myself about the thing about, why did I go through what I went through from a burnout perspective? Not what caused it, although I did ask those questions, but there must be a purpose to it. There must be something that I could use it for. And so that's how I decided to become a burnout coach. That's why I decided to help other people to prevent or recover, avoid their own burnouts, and also work with organizations to help their employees and their people to prevent them burning out, to avoid burnout.
Wow,
so that's what I do now.
Freaking hell. So to like not just end up in hospital, but to almost be committed to a mental health hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very serious burnout. And unfortunately, I recognize the symptoms. I had exactly the same symptoms as you, and thought it was part of that. Luckily, it wasn't. But it took 4 times of experiencing that before the consultant said to me, "Miss Glendale, you have to change what you're doing. If we see you in this room even one more time, we cannot guarantee that what you're doing to your body is going to be reversible. You must change." And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's it's one thing to have the symptoms and for them to get that little bit worse and keep ignoring them, but it's another thing to ignore the signs so much that you could actually end up with some irreversible health issues. And that's something that I'm really serious. I'm really fucking serious about that, when we're building our businesses, that we don't get brand burnout. So Phil, because it's patterns, isn't it? And I recognize, with that, I went through all of that and then built my next business, global business, traveling all over the world. And then I find myself burning out again. So they're patterns, aren't they? And we can keep repeating them, although we get to like notice the signs quicker and quicker each time. But what can we do to really break those burnout patterns, Phil, so that we don't have to keep learning out the hard way?
So I think some of it is a bit of self-analysis. There's no one silver bullet. There's no one sort of panacea that can get us to a stage where we can avoid burnout. But that thing about recognition, recognition, as you've rightly said, Sammy, I know so many people, and myself included, I had some mini burnouts before my really big one. And part of the challenge, I think, is that for people who are kind of perfectionists, people who are highly driven, people who are success orientated, people who are go-getters, and people who work for themselves in particular, and particularly those who have a sort of trait, and I started with that trait myself, but feeling like you need to do everything yourself.
Yeah. Just before you move on there, I want to know, hashtag, are you a go-getter? Hashtag, are you a trendsetter? Hashtag, are you, Phil, what were some of the things you just said there?
Yeah, so somebody who's really driven, somebody who's success orientated.
Hashtag success oriented. Give us a hashtag for which one do you relate to the most?
Yeah, I think all of those traits. But what we don't always realize is that those traits come from our life experiences. We've all had a childhood of some kind, and everybody knows, that our childhood experiences, our experiences of growing up, our interactions maybe in our first job or what we do for education, has a major influence on us. And those influences sort of end up with a conclusion of your values and your beliefs, mainly your values and your beliefs about yourself, even though quite often those are subconscious. We don't necessarily consciously know about those things. And as a consequence, as you rightly said, Sammy, we end up sort of repeating the patterns because they're based on those values, they're based on those beliefs. And a fundamental thing to try and break those patterns is to actually sit back, to look at yourself, look at what are your beliefs, what are your values, and that's where coaching comes in majorly. Until I was qualified as a coach, I'd never really heard about the value wheel and various other aspects that are used in coaching to try and get people to think about those things, because it's not something we think about every day.
Yeah.
You don't wake up on a Thursday morning thinking, I just check what my values are, what my beliefs are over this weekend, but if we do that, and particularly if we do it with a trusted person, that could be a partner, parent, a trusted friend, a coach, whoever it is, to talk about those, actually, when you're talking about them, it can often take you back in your mind, in your experiences, and you can realize that actually, yeah, what I'm doing there actually came from this particular experience. And actually, I've realized that it's a pattern. I do that all the time. And I recognized myself that with my experiences, the drive for me was that when I was about 18, my dad was made bankrupt. Which had a major influence on us as a family. And it was only when I reviewed my own values, my own beliefs after my burnout, that I recognized that all of my sort of work in life, I'd striven to be as successful as I could. But I actually was focused from a negative perspective. I was running away from something as opposed to running towards something.
Interesting. And actually, just on that point there, I have a lot of brand builders and ripple makers that, as we're going through the branding process, the brand building process, one of the highest values that comes up again and again and again, and is a little bit of a trick, I do put the word in there just to see who's drawn to it, is freedom. And of course, freedom is a move towards, but it's also a move you're moving away from, because what do you want to be free of? Free from,
yeah. That's a really good point.
I recognize that.
Really good point. I mean, a question that I'd asked everybody, really, and it's something that I do within my coaching, is I ask people, what's your measure of your life success? What's your measure of success? And a lot of people, particularly those of us in the 80s who were driven by sort of, yuppies and all those sort of days, it was about chasing the money. It was about getting up the greasy pole as quickly and as far as you can from a corporate career. Also, if you're working for yourself, it's, you know, I want to be successful, to be earning 6 or 7 figures. I want to be a multi-millionaire, or I want that car, I want this holiday, I want that house. They're all material things. And it would be really interesting if the viewers can pop maybe in the comments what their definition of success is for them. And I would imagine a large proportion of them would put something around a monetary value. But what we have to recognize is that the money, which is great at the end of the day, because we all need money, especially in today's environment, the money is the reward for success. What I mean by that is the money is the end result. Obviously, the end result might be a great holiday, a great house, but the money is the result. Success is the journey. It's the journey you go on, because if you have an unhappy journey, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you are continually stressed out, exhausted, you know, completely knackered, that's not a good journey. That's not success.
That's also very difficult, isn't it? Like if you're in that energy, you know, you're not also then being the best demonstration of what it is that you teach and what you do. You know, it's an important part. Phil, I really want to keep going, but we're really against time. If there was one extra thing that you'd want to leave our audience with this evening, what would that be?
Talk to somebody who knows you. Talk on a regular basis with them. And when you ask them how they are, also talk about how you are. And don't do that thing that a lot of people do on social media. My life's fine, it's great, it's all dandy. Be honest. Talk to somebody who you can gain that all important honesty back. Have integrity about how you're feeling. And if you're not feeling right, if your sleep is out of kilter, if you're worried, you're exhausted, you're anxious about everything, then seek some assistance in whichever way works for you. You know, if we woke up one day and had a massive pain in our chest, we'd go to the GP to get it sorted. You wouldn't wait a year to get it sorted. Don't wait for a year to get something like stress, like burnout sorted. Get it sorted straight away as soon as you can. Recognize the symptoms, recognize yourself, know yourself, and do something about it.
Amazing. Hashtag get it sorted, guys. Hashtag get it sorted.
Get it sorted.
Phil, how can people find out more about you? Where can they go to connect with you, collaborate with you, partner with you, joint venture with you? How can they get in touch with you?
So I tend to live on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's always a great way. Just message me and I'll message you back. I'm on Facebook too, not quite as much. My website is WorkLife180.com, and people can also email me at philip@worklife180.com.
All right, perfect. We'll get all those details in with the replay in the description. Phil, thank you for dropping in with us at one.
Thank you for having us, Sammy. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's just so amazing to be able to deep dive and get to know each and every one of you that bit more. And, you know, we're all in different communities together and at different times. And it's so nice to all be in one place at one time, one place, one drop.